Hello, welcome to Contact. I'm Gloria Creighton, and with me today at Anderson's Restaurant is local actor and television host Ian Martin. Welcome, Ian.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Tell me something, Ian. Do television host and actor have anything in common?
Oh, absolutely. Acting and television hosting aren't that far apart at all. I mean, as an actor, you're out there giving a character or telling a story, something like that. Same thing with a TV host. With Downtown Digest, you come out there and you say, hi, how you doing? And, you know, welcome to the show, and here's a story about blah, blah, blah. So it's exactly the same concept. You know, you're welcoming people in. It's yourself, as opposed to a character in a play, but it's still the same concept. You're imparting information and getting people excited about something and getting them interested the same way.
Yes, that's nice. One feeds off the other.
Oh, absolutely.
That's great.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay, we'll start with the actor persona first.
Actor.
Yes. You're a pretty busy actor these days. You're actually working on 3 shows now. Before we get into that, do you feel at times a bit schizophrenic working on 3 totally different types of productions?
Well, 2 of them are really, really similar. 2 of them are musicals. One of them is Guys and Dolls, and the other one's How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying. So there's a very big similarity there. The other one's a straight play. It's like not a musical, it's just a straight story. It's different. It's different, but the same. You know, it's like yes, I'm able to separate those 2 situations.
So you're not a method actor then? You know, you're
not method to the extreme, like I go and sleep in the gutter.
Right, that's what I'm saying, like the Brando type, where you have to experience and live the character.
Exactly, yeah. No, I mean, method to the extent that I take 5 minutes or so to get into what I'm doing and clear my mind. But, you know, that's about it. You know, it's not a complete...
Because you would be a bit schizophrenic or half mad if you were doing 3 roles and you were a method actor.
Yes, because one of them I'm playing this gangster guy, another one I'm doing the voice of a book and a guy who's in office, and another one I'm playing God. So, I mean, doing all 3 at the same time, I would rather become a megalomaniac or a complete
well, that's what I was a bit worried about, and I thought, well, he's looking awfully calm today, so either something's brewing or, you know. All right, good. That answered my question. Let's start off with Guys and Dolls.
Yes.
Are you, no, let's first of all talk about your role. You've got a very interesting role you're playing.
Yes. I'm playing Big Julie. And Big Julie is this gangster who's come in from out of town from Chicago. The show was set in New York. And he's looking for a really, really good crap game. And because he likes crap games, he's almost obsessive about gambling. And he comes in, and he's usually played by guys about the size of a house.
That's right.
But I'm like, well, 5'5" and about 100 pounds.
Right.
And it's one of those roles that I really love, because every about 5 minutes or so after I show up, I sort of stop the whole show and say, excuse me, I'd like to be funny now. Thank you. Let's move on with the story. And it's a great role. It's a really, really great role. And the key to it that my director, Norman, was telling me is that you have to, while you're not big, you have to think, I am the biggest man in this room, for the ego thing.
That's right.
And Norman Leggett's been really, really good, and just every once in a while giving me something like that. Just, here's a little tip, boom, and immediately makes the whole thing come alive for me. It's great.
So there's quite a bit of role reversal, actually, you were saying off camera in Guys and Dolls. There's another part that, what's the other role that's reversed?
Lieutenant Brannigan, or actually they pronounce it Lieutenant Brannigan. Lieutenant Brannigan, obviously, this is the 40s, he's a cop.
Very macho, always guys in the 40s.
Played by a woman in our show.
Ah, nice, So this is Guys and Dolls with a different twist. It's adapted for the 90s. With this adaptation for the 90s, is there still a lot of the kind of traditional bigness about the show? Is it played in a big way?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We've got big dance numbers happening. We've got a big chorus, sort of singing numbers as well. And all of the characters are very much bigger than life anyway. They're very much capital C characters, you know, almost caricatures in a way. So that bigness of musicals is more apparent in this production than you would in other shows. Just because this particular piece of material lends itself well to that, and everyone does a great job going in that direction.
Great. As Big Julie, Ian, do you get to dance? Do you dance in the show?
Well, normally Big Julie is not a dance role, but it's turned into one. Norman's decided that I actually know that this foot is my left foot and this one is a different foot. Right. So, or at least he has enough faith that I can come up with that by the time we open in a couple of weeks. So it's turned into a dance role. Usually it's this big guy the size of a house, and he doesn't really dance around that much, but there's a big crapshooters ballet thing that happens in the second act, which leads into the big scene that I have, which then flows into another musical number, Luck Be a Lady Tonight. And there's this whole ballet thing. I'm all over the place on stage in this number. I went up to Norman at one point and said, look, what kind of variety of idiot are you? I'm not a dancer. Yes, yes, you are. Don't worry, it'll be fine. Okay, fine, you know. Director says you can do what you can.
That's right, absolutely. And besides, Norman Leggett's a veteran in this business. I mean, he's been doing musicals and choreographing and teaching dance for aeons.
Oh, yeah.
So after he finishes with you, you'll be up there doing doing the ballet.
Yeah, he's doing that, and he's also choreographing another show that I'm working in as well. So I think Guys and Dolls for me is this particular production is about acting and some dance, and then the next production will be more about dance more than anything else.
Right.
Dance and doing some voiceover stuff as well, and
some acting.
Yeah, and some acting.
And some acting.
Yeah, but more like relearning how to be a chorus actor.
Right.
Just sort of blending into the background and doing those little bits and then getting out of the way.
Good. Good. So this is going to be a different type of Guys and Dolls, yet with the bigness of the old productions.
Absolutely.
So where and when can we expect to see it?
It opens. Shoot, I can't remember the opening night date. It's 2 weeks from today, which helps us in no way right now.
So
November, I think it's the 22nd. It's like there's a Thursday with a 20 in it.
Okay.
It opens that night and then goes straight through. We're dark one day on the Monday, and then we close December the 2nd at James Cowan Theatre, which is now part of the brand new development of the Jack Shadbolt Centre for the Arts in Burnaby, near Heritage Village and the City Hall and the cop shop and the art gallery.
That's a nice theatre.
Yeah. I started out there actually in high school. Many years ago. And
you're back now.
I'm back again. This is the second time I've been back, actually. I did a thing for Dear Like Players. We did a kids show about a year ago. And I was in there, and it was nice to come back to the old space. And apparently they've redone it now. They got new
that's what I
seats
heard.
and
It's
stuff.
totally renovated.
I'm looking forward to see whether they've actually changed anything backstage. I don't think they have, frankly. At least I hope not.
Great. So you should feel at home.
Oh yeah.
All right. The other role that actually, before we talk about the other play that you're working on, Ian, you had a nice experience in the summer doing another old classic hit. Tell us about that one.
Theatre Under the Stars did a production of Annie Get Your Gun this past summer in Stanley Park. Theatre Under the Stars has been around for years, and I've always thought that, even when I wasn't considering acting, that Tuts was definitely one of the things to do in Vancouver, and I was lucky enough to get in on that this past year. Annie Get Your Gun is a big old-fashioned musical. Irving Berlin did the music, and what's her name? Ethel Merman started the role off many years ago, back in I think it was late 40s on Broadway, and it ran for like 2 years and stuff. And I was playing an exceedingly small role by a guy named T.L.C. Kiefer and stuff, and I was just basically chorus, and that was all about, for me anyway, it was learning to be a chorus person and doing some really complex singing, and I had an absolute blast. I worked with Ruth Nickel, who directed, and Douglas McCauley, who was musical director, and Lorraine King was choreographer. And all three of them, in their little tiny ways here and there, really helped me to sort of realize and learn how to do musical theater, and it was just, it was an absolute blast. I loved every minute of it.
Well, that's a real challenge and a real art to be a chorus member in a production like that.
That's what they kept saying, and I thought, okay, obviously there's a trick to it. We'll see how that works out.
And was it done in a big way, a big Hollywood way?
The sets and the costume and the whole look of the show was a very big Technicolor kind of production. The colors were bright. There was one set at the top of Act 2, beautiful. It was like a scene on a boat, and there was this gorgeous sort of evening scene on New York Harbor thing, and it's all these purples and blues and mauves and stuff. And it looked absolutely fantastic. I stood up actually when I first saw it when we were doing Tech Week, and I just went, "That's great!" And I realized I'd said it right out loud, right down like 3 feet away from the director's table, and both Ruth and Lorraine looked at me like I was some kind of idiot. But it was just the most amazingly beautiful thing. It's like, come on.
You were being enthusiastic about it.
Yeah, it was a beautiful set.
What was it like working with Ruth?
She was really good. She gave an awful lot. She demanded a lot of people too, which I liked. Occasionally she would get cranky, but admittedly she would only get cranky because people weren't doing their jobs, and I don't have a problem with that at all.
No. With the production at that level, everyone has to be right there and focused, because time is money usually. And
exactly. I mean, the entire production was unpaid. I mean, well, the directors got paid and the musicians got paid, but as actors, none of us got paid. We didn't have any equity involvement at all this past year for various reasons. So when you're dealing with amateurs, theoretically, well, you know, you're not being paid and so on and so forth, and you know, you cut them some slack. But as far as Ruth's concerned, if you're in theater, if you're on stage, and you're doing a job for the people who've paid good money to come in, and people were paying like $16 or something like that to come in, you've got to give them a professional quality show. So you may not be paid, but you're still a professional actor in your attitude and your presentation.
That's right.
So And, you know, if you're fooling around in rehearsals and stuff, you know, you're standing around, you're not in this scene, but you're not on a break.
No.
The people are walking off, getting a coffee, talking around, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I was doing what she was expecting, just naturally.
Yeah.
You stand there and you listen and you watch and you learn, because you might get something out of her directing someone else in a scene. You go, oh, yeah, I understand that. I really understand what she's doing. Oh, cool. And then you have a better understanding of acting in general.
Yeah.
And that's what I got out of that whole experience. And
that's the key too. That's what a lot of very good actors and, you know, experienced actors say, that they're learning all the time. Every film, every set, every play is a learning opportunity, working with different directors. So good for you, Ian.
Thank you.
Talking just to finish up Tuts there, Under the Stars, I've heard horror stories about productions in the park and, you know, squirrels coming on stage and lightning and mosquitoes. Did you have any of those? Yeah,
we had a gigantic thunderstorm at one point, actually, about halfway through the first act. That just came pelting down. It stopped by about the time we started the second act. Only about a third of the audience left. We were absolutely amazed, you know, that they had, because the heavens really opened, and we applauded them at the end of the show.
Oh,
we finished up and they applauded us, and we all just turned and just applauded right to the audience, because they were real troopers. We just couldn't believe it. If I was out there, I would have left. Let's put it that way.
Well, you must have been good. You guys must have been pretty good for them to stay.
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah. You also had a very challenging thing happen one night. You broke your foot.
Yeah.
And you continued the show.
That's right. Yeah.
Was it halfway through?
Yeah, about halfway through the show that night, we were towards the end of Act 1. We do this big number, just the guys singing with the male lead, and we're all standing around sort of doing this macho thing of, well, you know, I've given up and I'm fallen in love and that's okay and blah, blah, blah. So that finishes off, and you slowly sort of saunter off stage, and then you run like the heaven, like the devil's after you, right down the stairs, turn around, go round to your dressing room, chuck this off, change in a brand new costume, and go up and do the Indian dance, which is a whole lot of jumping around and spinning and all this sort of stomping stuff, and it was just an absolutely great number to do. Sauntering off stage that night, oh yeah, okay, congratulations, Frank. I go then thundering down the stairs, and halfway down I rolled my foot over on itself. Yeah.
Lovely.
So, and then I stepped down at that point, so this bone right behind my little toe snapped. And it hurt like anything at the time, but I didn't realize what I had done. I thought I just pulled a muscle in my foot, because I'd done that tons of times in rehearsals. So that's fine. You know, I screamed bloody murder. The orchestra certainly heard me, because they were right the other side of the wall. I then limped down, changed into my costume, went back up on stage, did the dance number that night absolutely perfectly. It was that magic time that you just suddenly...
You were adrenaline. Your adrenaline was peaked, and you didn't feel it.
I didn't feel it. I was in shock, and I'm an idiot, and I'm one of those actors that says, never doesn't matter what the situation is, you keep going. So I did, and I just nailed the number that night, probably because of the adrenaline. And then I went and put some ice on it, and carried on, did the opening of the second act, where I do this big grand jeté off the top of the stairs through the air, landed
with the broken foot.
With the broken foot, landed in the middle of the stage, did a quick snap spin kind of thing, finished up, you know, sort of thing, a very attitude thing to the audience. And I've stumbled a little bit doing that, because I landed on the foot that I had broken, and well, that was uncomfortable. So
to say the least.
Yeah, because, well, again, I thought it was just badly bruised, so I carried on, and then when I did that, somebody out in the audience, who was one of the trustees, said, he's broken his foot. I know he's broken his foot. And so later that night we went to St. Paul's, and sure enough I had broken a bone in my foot, and I had 2 days off, and then I went to my stage manager on Tuesday. I think she had talked to Ruth about it. I said, look, okay, I can't move on stage without a cane. I probably shouldn't have been on stage at all as far as my doctor was concerned, but I can't move on stage without a cane. I can either be a young war veteran, or I can sell it as an old man. Please, please, make me an old man, please, please, please. And sure enough, yeah, they made me an 80-year-old man, so I had white hair, and I was hobbling around. And some of the audience people said to friends of theirs in the cast, oh yeah, who's that really, really old guy?
So doing such a good job hobbling around. It looks very natural.
See those 80-year-old guys around there. That was great. And I was still in a couple of dance numbers, and yeah, there was a couple. Sun in the Morning is a great song to sing, and I really liked doing the dance number. And I was so glad that Lorraine let me stay in that number, because I just loved singing it. And this whole sort of cane, top hat and cane thing, which is sort of what she was doing with the choreography anyway, so it kind of worked.
Great.
Oh, yeah, I just loved it.
So
it was a blast.
Out of mishap, good times.
Yeah, I did 3 weeks without a broken foot, and then it did, just as I was starting to get bored with the show, all of a sudden I had something new to work with, and I was an old man, and I was able to do that for 2 weeks. It was great.
Yeah, so I hope you didn't do that on purpose. Anyway,
no.
For a little change there, a little spice. Moving on to the other production you're working on, How To.
How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying. Possibly the longest Broadway show title ever.
Now, this was a book, wasn't it? This was actually...
Yeah, back in the early 50s, early mid-50s, a guy named, gee, I hope I get it right now, Sherman Mead, I think was his name, wrote a book called How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying. And it was an actual book teaching you how to get somewhere in the business world. So, for some reasons, a couple of guys decided that this could turn into a musical. They did. And then about 64 or so, after several rewrites and stuff, it opened on Broadway. Robert Morse, Rudy Valley, all that sort of stuff. Won the Best Musical of the Year, Tony, and Best Acting, and so on and so forth, and ended up winning the Pulitzer Prize for the book, and so on and so forth. And it's a story of a guy who's fighting his way to the top of the corporate ladder in sort of late 50s, early 60s, following along with his book as tips and help to him and inspiration to succeed in business. And he falls in love halfway through, of course, as well. And it's a very, very funny story. It's a really hysterical little piece, and yeah, I just fell in love with it. It's great.
And you're doing the voice of the book.
Yes, yes. When J. Pierpont Finch, who's our illustrious hero, when he turns to the book for inspiration, my voice comes up over loudspeakers saying, "Dear reader, this little book, blah 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 blah," you know, and gives some sort of details and helps and so on. And I'm also on stage as another guy too.
Great.
Sort of walking around, and this is where all my dance learning, I think, comes in for that next production.
Great.
Yeah.
So where can we see this, How to Succeed?
That'll be the last 2 weeks in February at Centennial Theatre in North Vancouver.
Right.
And then we take a week off, and then we do 2 more weeks at Gateway Theatre in Richmond.
Nice.
And so that'll be, I think, second and third week of March.
So that's a nice long run for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you really get into that book.
Yeah, I like doing the longer run. I found that with Tuts especially. We did 5 weeks, and we did 5 performances a week. It was great to do that kind of a length of run to really get that consistency thing. And I think the same thing with GVOS's production of How to Succeed in Business.
Do you find if you're doing that length of a run, Ian, that you tend to change the character, or you tend to bring something different to it?
Well, okay, you've done enough dancing and performing and stuff, Gloria. You know that you can't really... You can bring something new to it, but you can't bring too much new, because otherwise it starts throwing people off. But about halfway through the run, all of us, well, I had to change, because I had a broken foot. Okay. But even so, even without that, about halfway through, you start getting a little bit bored, and you start thinking, well, gee, I wonder about
trying
such
this,
and such. And even if you don't actually try anything differently, you certainly think about something differently, and that opens up a whole new door to you, into a whole new experience. And, oh yeah, well, I could get in through my subtext this way, and all of a sudden there's a whole new little bit of advantage, or a little bit of something you can add.
Or if there's something that you didn't feel good about, you got a second chance
exactly
to work on it. Great. Okay, the third production is quite different.
Oh yeah.
You're playing the creator.
The creator.
The creator.
Yeah.
What is this production?
This is a show called In the Beginning. It's a religious satire. Same sort of way that I guess Dante's Inferno or something on that line. I mean, it's not classic like that way. It's a brand new piece, but it's along that sort of line. It's a two-hander. It's just me and another guy. He plays Moses, and I come in.
In a body stocking?
Body stocking, yeah. I will be probably wearing something a bit more, but we've done it a couple of times with me just wearing a body stocking. Because obviously God is brand new to the world, and I usually have my hair slicked back as well, so it's a very embryonic kind of presentation. And come on stage and, who am I? Where am I? This whole kind of, I have no idea where I am or what I'm doing or anything. It's a complete blank, because I've just erupted into the existence.
Is there a lot of improv?
No, it's very tight.
Okay.
Yeah, the whole dialogue between Moses and I especially has to be bang on to the point we have to use exactly the right words.
Okay.
If I change, there's at one point Moses is talking about God, and he talks about him being such and such a person, and I say, he's a dictator. Now, about 4 or 5 lines on, I say, he's an autocrat. Now, if I say autocrat where I should say dictator, all of a sudden he jumps forward about a page and a half.
I see.
So
so
all the
you've got to be very precise.
Very specific. Oh yeah.
So this is a different kind of challenge for you.
Oh yeah.
And this is dinner theater.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, how does it work doing a subject, that type of subject with people eating and drinking and talking and?
Well, this would be an after dinner kind of thing.
Yeah, after. Okay.
Yeah.
So your audience is there. They're not clanking around with the glasses.
No.
And
they've finished dinner up.
Okay.
And now they're sitting around. Before they have before they have coffee and, and desserts, that sort of thing. Something to settle their stomach. Although me and the body stocking, I don't think it would settle anybody's stomach. But anyway, that's the idea, though. It's give you something to talk about over dessert if you didn't have enough conversation over dinner, I suppose. Private clubs, golf clubs, that kind of thing. Women's, well, maybe not women's auxiliaries, but that kind of a concept.
But the idea is great. I just find it an unusual kind of theme.
It is
great
odd
to be doing
ways,
at a dinner theater.
The producer says it'll work, and that's not my problem, right? So, but
that's certainly a challenge. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, it is. I find it an amazing acting challenge. That was definitely all about acting and learning to use subtext and not thinking about your subtext too much, just being. And that's where method acting pretty much goes out the window, because with method acting you're thinking so much. You've got all this time happening and all that kind of stuff. But in this one I've got to keep the pace up, because otherwise the show starts dying off.
So what kind of style of acting do you use? Or is it a combination, or is it your own that you've developed out of different studies?
Yeah, I've not really done an awful lot of studying in that way. I mean, I sort of skipped over that and went straight to the acting. I did high school and then dropped out for 9 years, and then bang, I was into an amateur production. But I suppose it's more intuitive than anything else. But if I would tend towards anything, it's more of just, it's a very British setup, I suppose, given what I learned in high school from a guy who was also very British, classically trained. You just go out there and you just be. You just go out and do it, and do it and do it and do it until it's right. And however it's right, well, fine. It's right. Don't mess with it.
Great.
And I think that's probably how I do that. A lot of what I do is comedy. And that's just very instinctive. You can't think about it and tear it apart, because if you start taking comedy apart and examining it, it's it's like one of those puzzles. You take it, it's a little cube, and you take it apart, and then you try and put it back together again, and it doesn't work anymore. Don't mess with it, if possible.
Do you get typecast a lot in a certain type of role?
Yeah. I think everyone gets typecast at some point or other.
What is your type?
Wacky young guy. Basically, I've never played a dad before, but as far as my age is concerned, that yes, the dad thing could work. The young scientist, the student, medical guy, maybe a doctor, that kind of thing. It's the bookish type, or more commonly, it's the bookish type who's a little bit wacky. A lot of physical comedy, a lot of that kind of character stuff. I mean, look at Big Julie. I mean, that's a character role, and again, that's sort of a reverse typecasting, but it's a very strong typecasting of a type.
Right. Tell me, Ian, about the auditioning process. That I find fascinating in the sense that to be an actor, you've got to be very sensitive on the one hand, and when you're auditioning, you're constantly being refused and knocked down. How is it? I know you go out and audition and you don't get things. I mean, how do you cope with that? Do you develop a tough skin and keep the sensitivity underneath, or what? I mean, this is an actor's life, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and it's...
Just pour your soul out and no thank you.
We didn't talk about this. You do, I suppose, develop a tough skin, or not so much that, I suppose you just ignore it.
Yeah.
If I'm rejected by a woman on a relationship basis, then I'm absolutely destroyed, for like a week and a half, maybe longer. But that's different. That's me personally being rejected. On a professional level, when I go out and audition and I don't get the gig, which is more common than not, as it always is, and
with most actors.
Well, exactly. Yeah, you go and you audition for 20,000 times, and you get one role, and you feel very lucky.
Yeah.
If you got a gig, period, it's great. So when you don't get accepted, it's the norm. And in that way, I don't feel rejected personally. I don't feel rejected as an actor. I feel rejected because I'm not the right shape. I don't have the right. My hair isn't right.
Yeah, so it's the character that they're rejecting. It's not personally you, Ian.
No. It's not me as an actor or a professional. It's just that I don't quite fit. I don't know what's in the casting director's head. He's looking for a particular type. I don't know what he's looking for.
Yeah.
I have no idea. Therefore, it can't be my fault, right?
Yeah,
I can't give him what I don't know.
that's a good way to look at it. Okay.
I just got to go and say, here's me. Is this what you want? No? Okay, fine. I'll go to the next one.
I feel better now.
Yeah.
I'm not so worried now.
Yeah, exactly.
It must be awful.
It's a little wearing after a while, but it's okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, you deal with it.
How about audiences? Are you getting audiences out for live theater? I know and I hear that, with the baby boom generation, now they're all cocooning at home with their entertainment centers and kids and videos. So who's coming out? Do you get young people? Who are your audiences?
To us, we got an awful lot of blue rinse set, really old people, because we're doing old-fashioned musicals, right? And the little old ladies come out and they, isn't it nice? There are people dancing around on stage. And that's great. And there's a lot of, for Tuts, there's a very strong family tradition of bringing the kids, and the grandparents bring their daughters, who then bring their children, and so on and so forth. So there's a generational thing happening. But in general, I think what I'm seeing lately is a lot of my parents' age, which I hate to say is now getting older and older, and they're getting more into their golden years.
So it's not the baby boom or the young.
No, I think it'll change a bit, with the big musical stuff with like Les Mis and Miss Saigon and stuff like that come through town.
Yeah.
The younger people are coming out, but it'll build from that.
Okay, great. We've got to talk about very quickly your TV show. So you are co-hosting which show?
Downtown Digest.
On Rogers Cable?
Absolutely. The fourth Wednesday of every month at 6:30, and then it repeats Fridays, Sundays, and Mondays.
And what type of a show is it?
It's a magazine-style format. We have reporters going around the downtown area, taking a look at seeing what's going on, current events thing, a lot of art stuff, a lot of interesting things like that. And then myself and my co-host Jessica MacArthur, who's absolutely aces. She's really, really good. I love working with her. Should have got her earlier. Gee, I hope my old co-hosts don't see this. But anyway, we do that. We sort of introduce the pieces and stuff, and we sort of try and give an idea of what's been happening in the last month in the downtown, or what will be happening in the next month, that kind of concept.
Great.
A little bit of community service kind of stuff.
Good. And you are open to people writing into you with suggestions?
Yeah,
and
absolutely. We'd really love to get some letters and some input from people in the downtown area to tell us what's going on, because we only have so many outlets of information. So tell us what's going on, please. Give us an idea of what we should be doing. Tell us what you want.
Great.
Yeah.
So you've got a full plate right now, Ian.
Yes.
And you're also a Barkerville veteran, but that's going to be for another interview because our time has come to an end.
Ooh.
You've also worked behind the cameras
here,
so you know exactly what it's
and
like.
I know what's going on in the truck downstairs right now.
And you can imagine what's going on in the headsets, right?
Oh, yeah.
So we have to come to a wrap.
Okay.
I want to thank you very much for coming down.
Yeah,
taking
thank you
time out
very
of your
much.
busy schedule. We'll be looking for you on stage at the Cowan
Thank
and
you.
Centennial and the Metro and Dinner Theatre.
It's been my pleasure.
And on Rogers Cable.
Thank you.
Okay? Take care and good
too.
luck. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank Anderson's for providing this lovely setting for the interviews. For contact, I'm Gloria Creighton. Please join us next time.